Hello, hello. Good afternoon, everyone. We still have a few people coming in live, so we'll just give it a moment. Good morning, Marlene. Nice to see you again. Thanks for being here. Hey there on YouTube. I think that's Sylvia. Nice to see you. If anyone wants to come in on Zoom, I will put the link here in chat on YouTube to sign up. It's free, but sort of registers for the event, sends you the replays, all that good stuff. Good morning. Hello, Brock, Gilbert. Good to see you both. Thanks for spending your Sunday here. I'm just letting the countdown play out because I don't know how to speed it up. And we still have some people coming in. All right, that's close enough because it is a little after the hour. So, welcome everybody. Good morning or afternoon. Thanks for spending your Sunday with me. We are continuing with our theme here on purpose, inspiration, moving beyond the kind of cliche. As I've said before, it's cliche both to talk about resolutions and to go the anti-resolution thing. But it's an important time of year, as we mentioned, where you can really examine your relationship to yourself and these whole kind of subjects of what it is to work on ourselves, what it is to be connected to something, what it is to be inspired, and let that be a way of you being motivated and moving through. And I want to also touch on something that goals, for example, I said there's very cliche things around goals this time of year, but especially in this theme, I'd like you to open up to goals meaning some very different things, right? Goals such as being a little more committed to a particular practice, whether that's internal work, whether that's a spiritual practice, whether that is a way you choose to work on like how you relate and how you be present with other people. That's, in my opinion, better goals a lot of the times than a lot of the things we do this time of year. But those types of practices, those types of, if you could call them disciplines, spiritual practices, meditation, they still really benefit from an attitude of taking them seriously. Thinking of them as not just like, well, you know, it'd be cool to do that if I have time, which is not really a goal or not a commitment. And at the same time, we're going to be coming at that from the direction of how do we connect to that emotionally rather than making it a willpower, purely mental, egoic type goal. So, inspiration, not resolutions. That's sort of the theme here. Resolutions, as you know, have this kind of determined, but often they have this other baggage around it, right? So it can feel very forced and very, I'm going to do this no matter what. But as you know, it doesn't matter that you say that. Saying I'm going to do this no matter what is just a thought. It doesn't mean anything. It's not what actually drives behavior and a way of being for 365 days of a year, right? So as I said, it's a good time to look at how we relate to ourselves. And we can use this whole theme of, if you're familiar with my stuff, just a quick refresher from yesterday, right? Repair mindset, relationship mindset. Repair mindset is whatever's happening within me and my own goals, my own desires. Everything is about fixing something, right? So fixing my laziness, choosing to work on my procrastination because it's a thing that's wrong with me. I distract myself too often. Versus a relationship mindset, which is how do I relate to what's coming up inside of me when procrastination shows up, when I find myself floundering or making sort of familiar excuses or whatever it might be, right? How do I relate to that? Am I curious? Am I listening? Am I exploring that to see what emotion is actually either trying to express itself or the emotions I'm avoiding? Because that's always driving whatever's going on under the surface. Right? So it's the way we interact with what we're experiencing, and even including the subjects like, okay, this is a goal for the year. Spiritual practice, do something with a business, create a piece of art, be more present with the people in my life. You can come at that from one or two different ways. You can come at that from discipline and willpower, or, okay, if I want to actually be more of a certain way, how would I have to relate to myself? How would I have to talk to myself? What would life have to kind of feel like that would consistently nudge me in that direction because I'm actually motivated and I'm feeling a connection to why that matters to me instead of it just being a mental concept. So like I said, how do we relate to whatever that is? Whatever that is you intend to have a little more of and feel a little more of this year. And even if you're looking at it purely as an emotional internal experience, right? I want to feel more connected this year. I want to be more present with other people, less reactive, less in old patterns. As, noteworthy as all of that may sound, you can still relate to those types of goals or those types of intentions from a similar way, right? So how do you relate to doing that? Okay, is it willpower? I'm going to get up every day and meditate. I'm going to force myself to try to be more present. Is it about discipline? I'm going to make sure I do this practice every day. Routine? How do you think about it? But more importantly, when you feel into, okay, this is my intention, notice the emotional tone behind it. And let's sit with that for a moment. You can tap if you'd like, and just notice, because this will bring up how you were taught to relate to any intention or goal. You will not have a choice about this. It will just be how life feels, but we want to actually look at it because it is learned. And I'd like you to pay attention to the subtle variations, which is includes an unwillingness to commit. Because sometimes, especially if you kind of lean in the direction I will often lean in with this work, right? Which is like being more self-compassionate. Self-compassion for me doesn't mean I don't practice or I don't organize the things for the call. It doesn't mean, well, I'll just do it when I feel like it every day of my life, that's the attitude. That's actually not self-compassionate. Right? That's letting something else kind of run the show. Because it is an act of self-respect and taking your life, valuing yourself and your life to say, no, I'm going to actually do some things or make these intentions. Right? There is a lot of temptation and ego in, well, it doesn't really matter. Right? That's different than pressure. Okay, so just really dial into the nuances for you. What does this internal dialogue look and sound like? Because I've worked with people where it really yo-yos, right? Even in the moment-to-moment exploration. It's like within a 10-second increment, it's like, oh, I'd like to do this, I'd like to start a EFT tapping business, or I'd like to be a coach, or I want to start this podcast this year, or do Course in Miracles, and then within 5 seconds, but yeah, like, I'm not sure. And then, well, I don't really have to do that. There's like a whole dance that can happen. So you want to tune into it. How do you relate to it? And feel free to let me know in the chat, because as we do on these calls, we'll use that to do a little processing together. So let's see what came up for you there. How are you relating to it? I see we got a little bit here on YouTube. Let's take a look at that. I wrote my ebook last night. Wow, after yesterday's tapping session, after 1 year of procrastination. Beautiful. Oh, this is a great case study. So, yeah, Trust Universe on YouTube. Oh, hi, Peg. Nice to see you. So we were there yesterday, and I relate to myself without resentment, and I'm motivated versus forced. Great. That's like textbook of the theme we're talking about. Motivated versus forced to do it. And you notice that you actually wrote the ebook. The pressure isn't there to do it. And that just goes to show you the pressure doesn't help. Right? Pressure does not help you accomplish things. Deadlines can, out of sheer force. Like, for example, you're going to lose your health insurance if you don't file by today. But you can't maintain that for your own goals and intentions, right? Because it's not real. There isn't a real deadline that says if I don't meditate tomorrow, the government's going to seize my property. So we want to look at a healthier, happier inspiration for that. I thought that was you, Christine. Yeah. I just in case you didn't want your name, but awesome. Cool. Let's see if we have any other comments about what you're noticing, how you're relating to yourself when it comes to these various intentions or goals. And including if they're positive, because if everyone's all good, these calls are based on, the processing are based on what's actually coming up for people. So if everyone's like all good, no resistance, I talk to myself in a positive way, I feel inspired, the way I relate to these subjects is all good, then we will move on. So I'll give another moment for that. The inner dialogue around it all is very interesting, right? Because even, like, for example, my sort of discipline for years and years and years was rooted in a sense of feeling behind. And if I want to do these things in my life, I have to really push myself. I have to not accept whatever. I have to do it every day, even if my body's not comfortable with it. And there's sweet spots about that we will navigate. My dreams terrify a part of me? Absolutely. That is requires a certain self-awareness to be in tune with that. But that's a good thing to notice. Because for most things, if we're not doing them organically, there is something within us that feels genuine fear or resistance because it actually feels threatening. It actually feels like there's risk in changing our life in this way. There's risk I'm going to become a pushover if I develop this sort of more compassionate way of being. There's a risk if I take on the spiritual practice that I've always wanted to dedicate to more, that I'm going to be like a weirdo. People are going to think it's weird. I've had all versions of these things come up. When I thought of intention, the first feeling was a dictator feeling. Interesting. Yeah. So let's look at that association a little bit. See if anyone else has that come up. That's a beautiful thing to point out. So the voice in your head, the way you think about intention, is very authoritative, or actually authoritarian. You will do this now. So that voice is internalized, and the very act of saying, I would like to move in this direction in my life, which is an amazing ability we have. It's an incredible gift that we can actually wake up and say, today I'm going to read this instead of listening to this, right? Or instead of watching the news, which just makes me mad, if it does, I have the right to intend that I'm going to wake up and move in this direction. That could be very self-empowering, but noticing how it feels like a voice is telling you, you have to do this. That's internalized. That's great to notice this, and that will color, right? It'll resist you tuning into, this is the intention for my year or for my day, in a way that's like, I have the right to have my own intention. Lucky me. There will be a rebellion internally because the inner voice sounds like a dictator, and we also like to be free. And we're very paradoxical as humans like that, right? We want freedom. We want no one to tell us what to do. And we want, tell me what to do for every single thing, right? So that internal conflict will present itself, and we will tap with that a little bit, because I know you're not alone with that. Getting my life in order will yield all dressed up and know where to go. So in that, I can immediately sense past disappointments, right? We learn that from something. I got inspired by an intention and a motivation. I went and did it. No one cared. No one responded. There was actually nowhere to go with it. I have pushed myself my whole life and have been so-called successful. I'm tired of making myself do things. Dictator voice. But now I can't even choose what I want to do next. Yeah, okay, I love it. This is why I like these calls, because they put things in my mind in a direction I wouldn't have necessarily come up with. And that comes from not having another way of motivating, which is exactly what we're looking at today. When you've learned how to do things based on pushing yourself or guilt or blame and shame, if you literally haven't learned another way, which most of us have not, the nervous system just goes, well, we don't know what else to do. We don't have a way to be that isn't that. So yeah, it sounds nice to not be pushing myself. But without that, it's just like, just kind of floating around. I don't know how to be. So we got great stuff here. Thank you all for giving me all of these golden pieces to work with here. So let's do it as a tapping. Let's go to the side of the hand. Also on YouTube there, I have difficult to maintain routine and discipline. Good, because that's not the way we want to force this. So we'll find a better way than trying to force it through routine and discipline. So side of the hand, let's say, even though I relate to myself when it comes to setting intentions or moving a certain way. Like a dictator with pressure or guilt, or fear comes up around even doing this. I choose to have compassion for myself and how I learned this. Even though part of me is terrified about moving in a particular direction, or just subtly resists it, and I'm used to pushing or forcing, I choose to honor and accept myself and where I'm at. Even though I feel resistance, whether it's big or subtle, around the beautiful idea of setting an intention for myself, because of all the past learnings around that, including learning to speak to myself with forcefulness, guilt, or shame. And I just have compassion for how I've internalized all of this. All right, let's go through the points now. And say, this way I relate to myself when it comes to intentions or goals, or even just being in charge of my own life. How I can associate that with pushing and forcing, of having an inner dictator, that it sounds like this is telling me what I have to do now. And that reflexive rebellion that all happens within me. Instead of a simple and clear, yeah, we want to do this. I know it excites me. I know it has benefits for me. But there's this push and pull. Or I just don't do it. Because the relationship is not inspiring. I'm not looking and feeling about this like when I was a kid and I wanted to play. I felt it in my body. I want to go do that. I want to stop everything I'm doing because I'm really inspired to go create that thing or play without I didn't have to rationalize it or justify why it might be acceptable. And I may have internalized voices saying why my interests don't matter, or I won't succeed in them anyway, or it's too big, so what's the point? I'm probably not going to be an enlightened master, so why bother dedicating to a practice? I don't know if the business is going to work, so why do it? And maybe in the foreground or unconsciously, there's a part of me that's scared it's actually going to work. What if my whole reality actually shifts through this practice? What if I start to lose my sense of who I currently am? What if I create that piece of art or start that business and it works? And then I've got clients or customers and customer service. And I have to actually do it instead of dream about it. So just embracing that we are complicated. I have internalized all sorts of learnings in my life. And they are not bad or wrong. They are trying to protect me. And so as I learn to be with them differently, I can learn that by trying to force willpower, trying to force inspiration, or trying to psych myself up without actually working with the little kid within me who's terrified of it working, or terrified of being disappointed, as though I'm going to override that, as though that's not actually driving everything in my life. So I get to have a better relationship with all of this. And I'm open to the possibility that by approaching things this way, I can begin to connect to a real sense of inspiration. All right, let's take a breath there. And let's see what that brings up, if anything. You can let me know how you're feeling. And we'll take a look a little more at the subject here of inspiration. And similar to yesterday, sure, no problem. I can turn up a little bit. I'm surprised it's doing that, but I thought I had turned it up. Yeah, just let me know. I'm kind of going in the red, so I don't think I can actually turn it up much more. Thank you for letting me know. So inspiration, kind of similar to what we did yesterday, where we just thought about, without overthinking it, right? Something where you felt a sense of connection, so that you understand this is not a mission statement. This is not a thing you put in your head and expect it to just generate a feeling every day. So for example, you can have affirmations, I am inspired, I am confident. If you don't actually feel that, it doesn't matter what you say. And so we get to these experiences, not surprisingly, through experience. And any of those tools, whether that's saying certain things out loud, etc., are only useful if they help you connect to a feeling, not if they become rote processes that you do as homework. Similar with gratitude lists and stuff, right? It's like, okay, well, I did it today, versus, no, it actually makes me feel something really good, and it helps me feel practically connected more during the day. It's the only reason to do any of this stuff. So if we can't connect to a feeling, there's no point in doing rote activities that just, because no teacher comes down and says, congratulations, good job. You did your meditation thing that you do. Now here's all these good feelings, or here's all this stuff. Right? It's what we can actually connect to and learn what the internal experience is. So what is something that inspired you even once? And we're going to, I guess you could say, dissect it just a little bit. Where you watched something, you saw something, you read about something, you started a course, maybe even if it faded off, right? You started something and there was a sense of like, oh, I am motivated to do this. There's a life force kind of energy behind it that makes me want to do this practice. And let's first see if anyone really can't feel that at all. We want to get a read of the energy in the room, so to speak. If it feels accessible or really shut down to even do this. Because for some of us, it's connected to so much pain or disappointment, or we're disconnected to ourselves for a variety of reasons, that this just becomes an abstract mental experience. A little confused about the relationship between connection and inspiration. So, and these may not be like the exact dictionary definitions or universal, but when I say something like you can feel connected to nature, like I can do that right now, even just looking at the trees out the window. I feel a sense of connection to it. It doesn't mean, okay, now I'm going to go build a cabin in the woods. Right? I just feel connected to it. It's not like I want to do that. When I saw, I'm thinking of certain jazz performers when I was a teenager, and there was like, I got to learn how to do that. I got to try that. I got to take that course, because I want to be involved in the creative act of it. Just like I can feel connected to other humans and not necessarily feel like, okay, we need to enter in some kind of friendship or relationship, or like, oh, I got to partner with this person. I got to interview this person, right? That's an inspiration in the way we're using it here. So it has an energy of moving you into either action or dreaming that I want to experience that or do that. So you could look at nature and be inspired and like, I want to go get a tiny house and move out into the woods in Vermont or something. That would be an inspiration. So thank you for the question, and let me know how that feels for you for a while. So being inspired is the same as feeling connected to something or someone? Not exactly. I'm just putting a nuance on it, where inspired has a sense of, I want to do something. I want to create something. I want to participate in it. I can feel very connected to someone or something without being inspired into some kind of action or goal or dream. Let's see, we got some more stuff here on YouTube. Also thinking of reducing expectations. Plenty of sense to me. Rebellion is the word. Learning how to move through this all. Yeah, you feel that inner rebellion come up around doing any of these exercises, or the voice in you that says, let's do this. Something else comes up and rebels against it, understandably, because we've internalized it in a way where it feels like homework. It feels like, don't tell me what to do, instead of, we all want to do this inside. We're in alignment. It's congruent. Barely made it through training at American Airlines, then I worked for them for 10 years. Yep. I love the discovery and learning phases of things, but not the practice and mastery part. The energy drops like a rock. Okay, those are cool insights, because those are things we can take a little further and see if that's if that's related to something emotional that's a block or resistance, or your natural tendency and role would be to learn and discover, and like your role in an organization might be more research than execution. So there's subtleties in this, right? Not everyone is everything. How about music? Music often inspires me very deeply. Yeah, and I'd say like that feeling of when you're moved by the music. There's an inspiration in that. You probably want to share it, even if that doesn't literally mean you actually tell anyone about it. But it kind of moves you into an action. There's like it doesn't mean you literally go practice an instrument, right? But yeah, resonance. You resonate with it in such a way. Good. So the main point with this is just noticing that it's a visceral experience. And see if you can kind of tune into, you can tap so your body's engaged in this. Tune into the flavor of this a little bit, right? Because some of you may be in routines, you may be using discipline like I do a lot. Let's say you're doing a spiritual practice of meditation or a workbook or whatever. And you're doing it, perhaps. But we want to tune into the visceral experience of what made you want to do this. What was that sort of energy in the beginning that was like, this book is inspiring to me. This teacher is inspiring to me. Learning this instrument, I just want to do it. I like the look of it. I like the feel of it. Notice the difference between that internal experience of I am inspired to go do that, which is valuable to reconnect to, because things that we do may have started as inspired and then they become routine and they sort of lose their juice. So you can look at this process we're doing here as something either to help you connect to an intention that you may not have, or to reignite something that's become routine. Performing in an orchestra or solo of certain composers when I'm just one with the music, yeah, I love it. It's the best, right? Being so-called in the zone and playing for others has and does inspire me. Yes, exactly. And my practicing of my instrument has changed so much over the years to be focused on the things that help me get into that zone better, right? So the technical things if I think about them, if I practice them in such a way where like the goal of this is to become automatic so I can stay connected to the music itself, right? It changes the practice. If I think about that feeling of being in the zone, which for me is especially if the really good drummer or the time feel in the band is really great for the kind of music I play. There's just like, you can almost hear it in my voice immediately. I'm thinking of playing, especially on the gigs where it's all Brazilian musicians from Brazil and me. I love that music so much, but like they grew up with it. They have it's the most authentic version I can get of playing that music that I've always loved. And it's just like, oh man, this feels so amazing. And I am kind of practicing to like feel the nuances of it. I love that so much, right? This is different than like, okay, I need the gig for the money, right? All of that's separate. So y'all kind of feeling this? Makes sense? I'm feeling my anxiety lessen already, reminded of past scary things I started that are now solid successes. Yeah. Now I'm trying to make myself play a certain kind of music that drives me crazy. I'm still trying to force myself. This is so funny. Yeah, because it gets intertwined, right? So we're using this to see, can I even connect? And it seems like some of you can, which is great. Or there's a memory of connecting. And then what's going to happen is the voices are going to come in and say, well, what's that going to do? It's not going to pay my bills. Or this is not going to really be safe to pursue. Or, yeah, in the nervous system level, whether this is in your conscious mind or not. Yeah, I was inspired all the time as a kid, and every time I went to go play with something, I was yelled at. Or every time I wanted to do something, they were like, well, girls can't do that, right? I work with people so much of that, especially of certain generations, right? It's all these things that shut it down. I can see that I've stopped expecting meditation to feel inspired every time. Yeah. And it's okay if it's not inspired every single time, but just to think about it as something we can consciously try to access. So let's see where we go with this based on what's come up so far. And we just want to notice that when I'm talking about inspiration, it's an emotional state. Right? Whether you use that word or not, it's a visceral experience. And so we approach it viscerally. Tapping is good even if it's just on a point because it's engaging the body. It's just notice our defense mechanism as humans is to go into your head. We make everything analytical, philosophical. Well, I want to do this because, right? But what's actually driving all of the behavior is emotions, incomplete emotions, stored patterns in the nervous system of what's safe and unsafe. That's completely driving everything. It may be a bold statement, but I want to do this. And whether you do it or not, how you do it, all the fear and anxiety that comes up or doesn't come up, and the person who just, that person just seems to decide things and then they just do them. And then they succeed. It's like, what's that about? They don't have some gene. Right? They're fortunate in a variety of ways, I'm sure. And it's not to take anything away from their work ethic and will and intelligence. But there's a cleanliness, there's a clarity there. Or they know how to work with what comes up, even if they're not conscious about it. Because I've had to work through it, I have become someone who talks about these things and does calls like this. Because similarly with music, I was not natural. I have friends who are geniuses, and I don't use that word. It's thrown around. But they do things outside the scope of what people who practice their entire lives can do, and they can just do it and they can't tell you why. That is not me. I have to break it down. I have to digest it, and then it becomes emotional. And now it's kind of the other way around. But the point is, we're breaking these things down so we can actually work with them and work through the stuff that is stored in the nervous system. That's what we do in the processing together. So how much energy we have, how consistent we are, this is from your emotional state. And close your eyes for a sec if you can, and think about this for a moment. Just visualize this if you're visual, or just take in the words if you're not. Under the hood, there's all this programming and emotion that says it's really hard to do this stuff, whatever your goal or intention is. It's probably not going to work out for me. Things usually don't. It really takes a lot of discipline and willpower to do this. But today I've set a resolution for myself. I've committed that I will power through all of this sludge every day. That is human life for a large number of us. That's the very blunt version of what resolutions can look like without processing, without a broader context. Inspired action is not about that. But there can be things in the way. So let's do a little processing around that together, shall we? Let's do it as more tapping. Let's go to the side of the hand and say, even though. Inspiration and moving from this space may not be my default. I may have lost touch with it. I choose to have compassion for myself and how I learned this. Even though that feeling of inspiration may be rare for me, there may be fears and doubts. It may be more about forcing. I choose to honor myself in everything I'm experiencing. Even though I may be doing many of the things I do out of unconscious habit, out of avoiding certain feelings, out of routine, or forcing through all of this emotional stuff. I choose to honor and accept myself and be open to the radical idea that inspiration is something I can discover, cultivate, and connect to. And I can clear what's in the way of that by being in relationship with it, by getting it on board. Okay, through the points now. This idea of inspiration. I wonder if I can actually remember what it really feels like. Not, oh, I'd like to do that. That'd be a cool project one day. Someday I'm going to do that whole thing, and I'm not going to do it. Versus the visceral, physical experience of, oh, I'd love to go see that. Oh, I'm excited to go hear that music. I was really moved by what I heard or read. And that's calling me to express myself in some way. It's calling me to study something. It's an energetic state in my body that I do not choose. I don't decide what inspires me. I can't flip a switch and say, I choose to make paying my taxes fill me with inspiration. It is an act of recognition and self-discovery. Ah, right. I felt really inspired when I saw that. I wanted to take on that practice. I wanted my relationship to look like that. Just noticing that that's an experience. It's not a concept. And then all of the programming that comes after it. Well, what do I do about that? Or I could never do that. Women or men can't do that. Well, it's too late at my age. I don't even know what to do. It's safer to just not start. All of these protective mechanisms that arise within me. And I'm open to really seeing them that way. They are protecting me. They say, if you feel this inspiration and start doing something, you're going to be disappointed again. My job is to help you never feel that again, because it was too much. You know you're never actually going to do it, so let me save you time and stress. Which may have once been true. These programs were only created because they were once true. Maybe you were too young to literally make your own choices. Or you were always denied exploring your own interests. And the nervous system learned, yeah, we don't get to do that. Or it learned, we won't follow through. We learned we would be judged. And I learned all of those in a specific way for me. And I am bringing awareness to them right now. This is a real interaction. This is not a conceptual, try to hype myself up through self-talk. This is an actual relationship with parts of myself that either resist inspiration, don't believe it's sustainable, were never allowed to explore it, and all of the solidified routines and habits that may push against me making any changes here. I am choosing to sincerely look at this and examine it. Because this won't happen by itself. If there's one thing I could set as an intention this year, it's how do I relate to all this stuff inside of me? How do I connect to my own experience? How do I choose to take adult responsibility for how I'm relating to what's coming up. There may be thousands of things that were not my fault or responsibility that happened to me, that created these programs, that are all just trying to protect me. But changing this relationship, learning to work with inspiration and intention, that has to come from me. Whether I work with other people to help or whatever, in the end, this is me connecting with me and something bigger. And so I choose to explore this. Because I am worth it, and it is worth it. Inspiration is a real phenomenon. And it is so much easier to do things when it's connected to that childlike sense of curiosity and interest and worthwhileness than just powering through stuff or continuing to do the same patterns. So I'm open to embracing this more and more. All right, let's take a breath. You can move around a little bit, stretch yourself out, because it's been a good, I don't know. Wow, 50 minutes. Where did that go? Well, this, we'll continue exploring this a little bit and take some questions. This would also be a very good time to tell you a little bit more about how we can do more of this together. So let me show you some details here, because we do these calls multiple times a month, actually. And we have this program called the Inner Harmony Collective. It's been awesome. Some of you are already in it that are here right now. And so this is a natural next place for doing this work. And if you're enjoying what we're doing here, there's a lot of similarities. It's an ongoing live group call. We work with these emotional processes in real time. We use the tapping. We explore some other techniques as well. Things I'm really workshopping, kind of get to really go deeper with it here. We meet 3 times a month and everything is recorded. There's a full library of all of the archives of all the different topics, and they're listed out. So money, relationships, all sorts of different stuff. Going deeper with this, talking to parts of yourself, parts work, we can get a lot deeper there. And the rounds are all shaped by the comments, and people share, okay, this is coming up for me, fear, tension, anxiety. I include it into the tapping rounds and the processes for the subjects. So they're shaped by that sort of group participation. And it's something you can't really recreate on YouTube. Definitely goes deeper than the kind of videos that I can create by myself. It's not one way. It's 3 times a month. They are similar times to what you've had on this call. So they are mixed up for different people's time zones and work schedules. So one call is on a Monday at noon. One is at a Monday at 7 p.m. One is on a Saturday at 12 p.m. Those are Eastern time. So there is an extra call tomorrow for the members. So we are doing our noon 12 p.m. Eastern call tomorrow for the members. So if you sign up now, you can join that as well. We are doing the 7 p.m. just like this for everyone tomorrow also. So 2 calls tomorrow if you're a member, plus 2 more calls later in the month. So it's like 5 calls this month or something for our folks, which is cool. There's a community space where you can post your questions for a Q&A section. I do Q&A sessions. So even if you can't be there live, there's a place where you can suggest comments. It's like a little forum inside the site. If you're like, oh, there's a Q&A call this month, or there's one every month, but I can't be there, but I've wanted to ask about this. And so, yeah, you can browse by topic, go through things. So that library keeps adding. I open this just a couple times a year. Last year I opened it twice. That was the first round of it. It's been really awesome. Pretty much everyone has stayed in there, which has been really great to see. So I'm getting good feedback. It closes, I'm closing it on January 11th. So there's about a week. I'll be sending emails with the replays of these calls. A reason to join now would be to be there live tomorrow. And I would love to have you there. I've loved the energy of everyone today. So if it feels like a good match for you, if you like these kinds of calls and would like to participate live and just have the library of these types of processes so you can go back to them and do deeper dives on subjects that you are involved in creating and having your own aspects included in the processes, that would be great. So I'll just share the, oh, thanks, Marie. Marie is in there. She said she loves it. I will put a link here on YouTube as well. So let's see where we're all at as far as what we've discussed, what we've processed a little bit. Getting close to the top of the hour. I can go a little longer today. So I will explore more questions about any of this. And I wanted to put this forward here as well, sort of bridging the gap with inspiration and the romanticization of that, right? We touched on that a little bit yesterday. This is not to create a false expectation that, okay, so it's about waking up every day feeling super inspired, because that's unrealistic, and then you just won't do things because, oh, I'm not particularly inspired. This can actually become dangerous. I've seen it. It's not the most common thing, but it is something to be a caveat when you start exploring the emotional connections to things, because there's a lot of things in my life I have to do that I don't feel inspired to do, obviously. But they serve the things I am inspired to do, and I just do them, right? The heaviness has been increasingly just dissipating, just fading away, right? It's the stuff that just gets done so that I can go do the things I like. And I'm really, really fortunate to have things I truly enjoy. And I also had to build this platform, right? Like, you're here listening to me, which I really, really appreciate, because you know I exist, because I put up videos, and because I do calls, and because I've been rather consistent about that over time. And having to stay consistent when I still get 50 views on a lot of videos, which is not, if your goal is like, I'm going to be a big YouTuber, there's no inspiration behind that, right? The inspiration for me obviously does not come from, oh, I have to see the views rapidly growing. I have to be becoming famous. I have to be getting tons of recognition. Obviously, that's not what inspiration is about. If those are side products, and eventually this may grow more, but if I need that feedback, that's not inspiration, right? If you think about, again, what connecting to the visceral experience, like when you're a kid, when you were curious about art or a piece of music, it wasn't like, now this better result in me, getting a degree from Harvard or something, right? Like, it's not about that. I just love doing it. I am inspired to do it. Then there's the practicality of, okay, how do I structure this? Where does this fit into my life? Is this a thing I can make money from? Should I do that or not? Right? These are really interesting parts of the emotional work. And this is why I love working with people one-on-one and in groups, because this all comes up, right? It is childish to say, just do what inspires you, and that's it. Because that, if you're inspired by interpretive dance, and I'm a jazz musician in New York City, right? I'm grounded in the reality of what it is to be an artist, and that doesn't always it's not all just magic and rainbows, even if you're incredibly good. But working in this way, I find it to be consistently gratifying. So even, the practicalities of, okay, these are the things that I just have to do in order to do the things I love, they feel like they are in service of something. Does that make sense? Because there's some ability for me. And I'm very fortunate because I get to be around people like you all. I get to play with good musicians, but it took time. But then it sort of it helps drive itself, right? And creating containers for myself where, okay, I told you all we'd be here for 3 days, so I'd better show up, right? That helps me. It helps. There's a creating structure, but from an inspired place, the structure, you can feel it, right? You can use it like a compass, because basically the way I would describe it is there's a certain inspiration around doing this kind of work with you all. And then kind of like a sonar, okay, move in this direction. Well, should I do this kind of call? Not so much. And there's a lot of things that they might work, right? People would be interested in them, but they're not passionate for me, or they don't feel authentic to me. And there's frankly a lot of stuff that really gets great viewership that I think is just inaccurate and sets up false hope and false expectations, right? But people want to hear it. Sharon, how do you pick the topics for the group meetings? So there is a place in the program itself where people post suggestions. So I definitely use those, and then I also just common themes from my own practice, right? From working with people and doing calls like this and seeing the themes that come up, that will often inspire me to go, okay, a lot of people are dealing with this in a certain way and feeling like I have something to offer in that direction. There's always there's always good stuff that comes up, but that's basically how it comes up. And so there's already a pretty healthy list of topics. And it's also the place where I'm going to be, where I kind of do, especially like last week, and will workshop things, as not taking away from the calls, but things, okay, this is a process I'm exploring. This is something I'm working out. That's the most likely place for me to do it first, is to have an extra meetup or a group call or something where I say, I want to take you all through this thing I've been workshopping. But yeah, the topics for the meetings kind of come from that. So noticing how this inspiration kind of model, right, where it's not abstract, it's a combination of intention, connection, and doing the emotional work on what comes up around it, right? Because I think everyone wants this. A theme in my life has been people saying, like, you're really fortunate to have this music thing, even though, like, if they saw the actual day-to-day reality of it, 99% of people would say, why would you do this, right? And like the money you make doing it. But people resonate with the passion, right? Like, everyone wants that. I just sense it from the overwhelming majority of people I talk to. And it just comes up all the time in my private practice, right? Like, even people, I talk to people that have money, way more money than me, that don't have this. And like, the vibe I get is they would trade it. Because when you have money, after a while, like, well, what do you do? What do you do with it? If you're not inspired by anything, like, you buy another boat? Who cares? If you're not feeling what I feel being with you all here, who cares if it's in a nicer house, right? I mean, it's cool if it's in a nicer house. And I definitely am very in tune with the reality of, like, before a certain point, or up to a certain point, money makes a big difference, right? Like, your basic needs are met, and it is, like I said yesterday, it is a luxury to talk about purpose and inspiration. I get it, right? And I do believe it's still very valuable if you are struggling in a situation that your way out of it comes from a place of inspiration versus total desperation, right? Not to minimize the situation, but like, okay, what do I connect to say, help me through this? What's the way out of this? What's the guidance? What's the way I need to move? Because if it's purely fight or flight running the show, right, I think it's just as, if not more important, to learn how to connect to something bigger than our limited, fearful state to help us with the hardest stuff, right? The health challenges, the money stuff, right? So inspiration and connection. Yesterday was a little more connection. I think of it not as, it's a luxury to talk about it in terms of like, oh, what do I feel like exploring today? If you're destitute, right? But the emotional quality of what I'm talking about, I feel like is equally, if not more important to get through this stuff. Because the more in fear and the more terrifying your situation is, you're totally, everything kicks in, right? The amygdala comes in, fight or flight nervous system. We start seeing things in a very limited perspective. We're in a very survival-oriented, narrowed vision that can make it seem impossible to get out of the situation because there's none of that opening up. And in the inspiration, there's an opening up. There's a like, there's so much, there's things about life and beauty and the world that I'm not open to when I'm rigid, when I'm forceful. Right? There's a life outside of my current situation, and there's things I can connect to even if my situation hasn't changed. So let's see. Any thoughts, questions, comments, practicalities? I love the discussing the practical. It's like the most important thing for me, because otherwise this all just turns into another thing that we all listen to and think about, but it doesn't. Next year it's exactly the same. So, that was huge. Felt like my inspiration was buried pretty deep. Awesome, Christine. Yeah, I mean, you're so artistic, right? I mean, you're such an obviously inspired person, but it can get buried by just all the stuff you have to do being an adult, and the and the difficulties that you have to overcome. But hopefully it helps to kind of bridge it, to think of this whole connection inspiration thing not as like, oh, well, I only get to do that when everything else is in order. But maybe, and I would say yes from experience, that this kind of connection to something bigger than your limited fearful state or survival state will help you out. Very helpful. Thanks. Awesome. Thanks, Evan. This has been helpful. I woke up feeling, how am I going to do this? Right. That's when we're seeing a broad outcome, and it's activating a part of us that is saying, I don't think this is possible. Instead of exactly as you wrote here. Now I feel inch by inch, it's a cinch, yard by yard, it's hard. Take tiny steps to build momentum for the larger steps. Exactly. Right? It took me, how many years did it take me? Like this little thing with the slides, like I could say I'm friends, but I work as a student with the person who makes the thing you're seeing on the screen with the slides. It took me like 3 years to finally get that, right? Just to get it set up, right? Like the things that you see here, like, oh, there's kind of a nice camera set up. Like it was like one thing at a time, starting when everything was shut down. Like, what was that? Almost 6 years ago now. That's when some of the first equipment started. And I didn't have a YouTube channel yet. There was someone else I was working with, and I would do some videos on their channel and these types of things. And now it's okay. I felt a little comfortable getting my own, didn't call it Inner Work with Evan, wasn't comfortable having my own name, right? Very, very gradual. Even what you're seeing today, this is not a fast moving process. This was piece by piece. The information I've learned, I've been studying for years. It's a gradual thing. What sustains us instead from the chat? Especially anything that lasts a long time, like parenthood or a long-lasting marriage or a high-level career, like being a brain surgeon. I'm fascinated about how you have two big passions, this and music. Well, there, as a bass player and doing this, the passion is almost like accompanying. It's supporting. So they're really similar. One just has a bass in my hand. One is like using my voice. But basically they're tuning in a really moment by moment, really nuanced way, whether that's like what the drums are doing or whether that's what your nervous system is doing. One is just a more outward expression, but it's kind of the same thing. So it's not like I'm a brain surgeon and a jazz bass player or something. There are some people like that. But, I love that I was able to follow your process and growth in this field. Oh, cool. Yeah, Gilbert. Yeah, you've seen me from when I really was green at all of this stuff. And I still feel like a kid with it. I still feel new with it. But that's a good thing. Whereas before I just wanted to I wanted to arrive and I'd be very impatient. That has shifted for me from this kind of work. Just making peace with the nature of it taking time, with the nature of it being ongoing, with the nature of because why fight the nature of anything? It just doesn't work. And also seeing people who have really quick success, there's a lot to deal with there too. That's not all rainbows there. Okay, Marlene, that's a beautiful explanation. Music and EFT complements each other. Yeah, and it's also my nature, right? I mean, there's people who play music really well that are not sensitive. They're not like accompanists, right? It's just very in your face, and it's like this, and they execute it. It's awesome, right? It's really different than me playing like a jazz standard with a piano player. Like, okay, which harmony? Like, that's a totally different thing than playing like death metal, which is also awesome, right? It's just a different energy, and they could be super sensitive people too. It's a different kind of nuance though, right? And so it's just like the kind of music I play and the way I play music lends itself to being this. And so there's people who would like the way they play music would lend themselves to another field in a really particular way because you're learning who you are, right? It's not how do I be an EFT practitioner. As many of you know, like what I do is not all that similar to what some approaches with it, because this is just this. EFT is just touching points on your face, and I'm just bringing my background into it. Versus like everyone says the same things while tapping the same points. You'll notice there's a wide range of creativity and inspiration in emotional processing, whether people include tapping or not. Okay, resonates a lot. Thank you. Great, glad to hear it. Any last questions? Going once, going twice? I'll give it a moment. Otherwise, we will wrap things up. And I will put that, where did that go? Back on the screen here. If you are interested in joining tomorrow at noon as well as at 7, you can sign up for the collective. You instantly have access to watch all of the past calls. If you really want to spend more time with me today and tap through more stuff, one thing that would be more on this theme that we did, I think it was about a month ago, was belief in yourself. Really good and some pretty deep stuff on that, because that was specifically around the self-belief. Can I do it? What's the programming and messaging I got, which kind of shuts down the inspiration. So I will leave that up there. Hope to see some of you there. If not, in any case, I will see some of you tomorrow, Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. If you have any questions in advance, feel free to leave them in the comments on YouTube. You can leave them under the live video before that event starts. If you're watching this on YouTube or you revisit it there, if you click any of those thumbs up buttons or leave comments, it really, really helps the channel. I rarely say that, but it really does. It's amazing how much it does. So if you feel inspired to do that, that's always super helpful. Thanks for being here. Thanks for spending this time with me, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. All right, have a great day. Bye. And for everyone still here on Zoom, I realized, oops, I didn't end it on YouTube. They all heard that. I didn't put it properly in the chat if you want the link.